So now what I'd like to do is move to the section, the heart of this presentation, and talk a little bit more about each stage, some of the motivational interviewing strategies you'd use, and how pharmacotherapy can be intertwined into that, into the tasks of each of those. So that's why I take no credit for the blending solutions. Someone else did that, but it's a beautiful term. That's why it's blending the solutions together to work with the stages and the tasks of the stages of change. You know about pre-contemplation. I'm not going to focus on that. They don't really want to do that. They're demoralized. They feel hopeless. So what's the task? Well, the task is to increase the awareness of a need for change and concern about this current pattern of behavior. So we have to help the people envision the possibility of change and raise some doubt about what I'm doing is okay. With motivational interviewing, a key element of what we talked about, one of the principles, is this role with resistance. People often come in not ready to change. So we want to avoid arguing, we want to not directly oppose resistance, and we want to look at resistance as a signal to respond differently. And we have some video that really tries to help identify some of this. So this is just a little piece.
Is there anything that you'd like for me to help you with through that process?
Well,
you know you can call. I mean, if there's something you need to talk about within the week and the stressors are there, or you've got my card and you know that you can call.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
I'll support you through this process.
I don't have a problem with you.
Okay.
You cool people. All right? I'm just saying, you know, everybody act like I just got this illness or something, you know, like I'm sick, and I'm not. You
Right.
know, it's just if I put my mind to it, I can do whatever I want to do.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you. And I know that all of the efforts you made so far in the last 3 weeks, you continue to do the best, because you have really got a very strong constitution.
Yeah.
And I believe that whatever you determine, you will carry through with.
That's what I be telling people.
I
That's what I
believe
be
you.
telling people, okay? They don't need to be all up in my business telling me what I need to do, okay? I can handle me when I need to handle me.
You've made a lot of really good choices so far. And I appreciate your willingness to work with us here and to let us work with you.
Yeah.
Next week?
All right.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
All right.
Thanks, too.
He's not much of a, I mean, he's not really into this process very much, but she worked with him, gave him a little bit of room, focused on what he could do, made an alliance with him. You think you saw both empathy and you saw some of this rolling with resistance in that piece. The other key is really kind of focusing on expressing empathy and making sure that the client really feels that you're understanding them and you're not judging or criticizing or blaming. So acceptance is really a key element, and skillful reflective listening is fundamental. So here's another one where actually Tom and Scott.
I know it wasn't that easy. I got the feeling that you were asked to come, but I really appreciate your open-mindedness about it. I think it's great that you're here and we can talk.
Yeah, well, I don't mind coming in. It's everybody tells me I have a drinking problem, but I don't think so. I don't drink any more than anybody else. It's kind of what we do in my crowd. But I don't know. I guess I want to keep my job, and they suggested I come in. Okay. And I got a little girlfriend, so she suggested it also. So I figured I'd go ahead and give it a try.
So you said everybody tells you you have a drinking problem, but you're mainly focusing on work and your relationship. They seem pretty important to you.
Yeah, sure. They are important to me. You know, I'm doing pretty good on the job, and I'd like to move up. But they think that I could use a little bit of help. So if I figure if I can work with them, if I go ahead and do what they suggest, then maybe I can straighten up and fly right and go ahead and advance on the job. And that's kind of what I want to do.
So your job's important. I can tell by looking at you when you talk about it. It's really important to you, and you've got some opportunities there, possibly.
So you see, again, there's a little more of the empathy. There's a kind of a joining with the client, trying to kind of understand where they are, what's going on with them, and that's part of this the motivational interviewing kind of approach. Now, pharmacotherapy, actually, the options of pharmacotherapy, even in pre-contemplation, could be used as a way to reach to kind of a new way that patients can reach goals, help them with reduction or abstinence, arouse concern about their condition, offer hope to people who really are discouraged. So you can think about, the oral naltrexone, especially the extended release, could actually help benefit some people who believe they're unable to stop drinking. And give them an added sense that, well, maybe there's something here that could help me with my cravings, and reduce some of the pleasurable effects of the consumption. So you're thinking that this patient may need something like that, that could fit in. It also can help them understand, if you talk about medication, people kind of think, well, I must have a condition. Actually, with the Vivitrex one, some of the early people, the placebo folks do pretty well in Vivitrex. And the issue has always been, it's kind of like, well, if you have to kind of pull your pants down and get a shot in the butt, you kind of take a sense that, well, I must have a really serious problem. So part of it is even the kind of what's around the kind of the medication piece kind of gets people to thinking, well, maybe there's something really serious. I need some. If you need some medication, it usually means you've got some issues going on that are biological. So it could help kind of people think about that along the way. So if you use both the motivational interviewing and the pharmacotherapy during pre-contemplation, it can maybe help some of these patients think about the awareness of the problem, giving them some alternatives that maybe they didn't think they had, and giving some hope that maybe change is possible. So we have some possibilities there to kind of bring it together, even for people in pre-contemplation, which people say, well, you can't talk about medication for those. Well, maybe you can. I mean, maybe it's a way to kind of give them some sense of, well, maybe maybe I could do something now that I thought I couldn't do. Okay, let's get them into contemplation. If they're in contemplation, they're aware of the problem, but they're still kind of doing this risk-reward analysis and kind of going back and forth. So you're trying to kind of help them with this analysis of the pros and cons. You're trying to tip the decisional balance. You're trying to evoke reasons for change or risks of not changing. And you're trying to strengthen the efficacy that they can change. You're really here trying to help them make a decision. So if you think about some of the motivational interviewing principles that we talked about, clearly the developing discrepancy is really important here, to have them try and think through the risks and the benefits. Change is really motivated by some of this perceived discrepancy. I mean, you won't move or change houses unless you're really unhappy with the current house that you live in, or think that house by the beach where you can retire to is the place that you really want to go to. So you have to feel either that the benefits of changing are going to be really good, or this current place that I'm in is not good. So to move forward. So that's what we're trying to get people to do, is to do that.
What about your family? Your wife came in with you last week. What's her perception of your alcohol use?
She's not too happy with the way I drink, but I don't think I'm affecting them. Mm-hmm. Because I go to work every day, I do what I need to do. I don't see it as a problem, but mm-hmm. She doesn't like the fact that I drink.
Right. What is there about your drinking that she doesn't like?
Once I start drinking, she doesn't know. Sometimes I don't come home, or right home after work. Okay.
So not coming home after work is troubling for her.
Right.
Anything else that troubles her?
I'm not very nice sometimes when I drink, verbally. Mm-hmm. But, and I don't. Sometimes I'm hungover in the morning. She's not too good about that.
Yeah. What about your daughter? What's her perception of your drinking? Has she ever talked to you about it?
Yeah. I don't know. How much that's affected her, but I try not to think about it myself.
Okay. Right. Okay. So on one hand, you're working every day. You're going to work every day. From your perception, you're doing a good job at work.
Right.
Okay.
So I think.
Yeah. And you're bringing home the paycheck every week.
Right.
So you really feel like alcohol isn't interfering with your life.
Right.
And on the other hand, your wife is concerned because sometimes you stop off after work and you don't come home. Sometimes when you've been drinking, you're not very nice verbally to her.
Right.
And in the morning, sometimes you're hungover and maybe a little irritable.
Right.
So I guess there's a couple different perceptions of what's going on with your drinking.
Right.
Yeah. And work is concerned as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, I think, you work hard, you play hard, and
Right.
that's the
Yeah,
theory I
yeah,
go by,
yeah,
so.
yeah. And I'm sure most of the guys you hang out with have that same
Yeah,
theory as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
She clearly got a little discrepancy going. You didn't notice that accent, did you? No. You work hard, you play hard. The patient's up here if any of you want to help him. He is in the front table. If you can come up and help him afterwards, group therapy could be helpful, a group of therapists and one patient. He could be resistant, but we'll see. I think he's moving. And you may have noticed that therapist, she actually was the past president of this particular organization, so you should have recognized her along the way as well. So you really try to kind of develop this discrepancy between what they see, what's kind of going on, but again, you're not pushing it. You're not going, well, look, I mean, I'm sure your daughter really has a problem with this, your wife has a problem with this, your work has a problem with this. I mean, for God's sake, figure out you've got a problem. That is not motivational interviewing. I mean, it could be some other style, but it's not motivational interviewing. Okay. So really what you want in the task here is really to get them to evaluate the decisional balance and really move them to making a decision. And we'll have another piece here we're going to redo. We're going to see how far she got with him right now.
Did you write down how often you had a blackout?
No, but I think there was a few incidences in there where I, over the weekend I drank too much.
Well, last week when we talked, you were feeling very in two ways about whether you wanted to stop drinking or not stop drinking. And you said that one of the things that was going to be important to help you this become more important is that you would have to see more benefits to not drinking. And what has this shown you in terms of?
Well, it showed me that, I don't have as many benefits as I thought I did from drinking. I didn't realize it was affecting me as much as it was, and I was drinking that much.
How much money do you think you spent last week on your drinking?
Oh, at least $40, $50, maybe more.
A day?
I don't know. Not a day. Oh. No. A day would be, maybe $15-20 a day or whatever.
Okay, all right. So this is all good stuff. This is all good that you did this. Thank you for doing that. That's good data.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it brought an awareness to me of how much I was actually drinking. So,
what would you like to do next?
I know we talked about it last week that I have many options. I don't know what options I should do. But I think I should do something.
Okay. So you're at the point now where you really want to do something. You're making a decision to do something different.
Yeah, I think, but I don't know which way to go. There's so many.
Yeah, you do have choices.
So you see he's kind of got there. He's made a decision. He's not exactly sure what he's going to do yet, but he really seems to have kind of come to some decision, I'm going to do something. And that's really where what you want that person to do. That's really the task of the contemplation stage. He moves through contemplation and then makes the decision to kind of go there. Now how can pharmacotherapy help that process along? Well, the options in pharmacotherapy really can help people increase the perceived benefits of change. And the biggest thing they probably can do here also is decrease the anticipated negative consequences of quitting. So if you think that they have something that might help them, I mean, that's what detox does with some of the detox medications that we use, is it really helps people kind of get through those first 3 days without doing all the shakes and having all the other kinds of things. So people are willing to kind of go, and people, I mean, I was attached to a VA for a while there with our project, and that's where a lot of people came in. It was kind of like, what the benefit is, I really want to come in here and do detox to get off this alcohol right now without all of the other things. So it helps people think about, maybe there's some things that could help me, maybe I should do something about that. It also increases, again, the severity of the problem, perception of the severity of the problem, and could help people decrease the sense of helplessness. There are some things that I can do. We can do some things in treatment. There's AA, and there may be some of these pharmacological aids that could help you. So if you could think about that works in all of those. So a patient less willing to engage in treatment might benefit from this idea that medication can help focus on the tasks of contemplation. It may even help them kind of even in the process of making a decision. Some people who use the medication actually to cut down could actually benefit from thinking about abstinence if they use the medication and kind of have more access to the cognitions and the risk benefits analysis there. So you can use both motivational interviewing and some of the pharmacotherapy options during the contemplation stage to help resolve some of the ambivalence, to help decrease some of the hopelessness, instill hope, to help motivate them also to make some changes. So it is possible that it works even there. So let's move to preparation. If I get the person now, he's ready, he's kind of said, okay, I made a decision, now what am I going to do? What you really want here is to kind of build the tasks really are to increase commitment, help the patient to kind of determine the best course of action, and develop a plan. So these are really critical pieces of what we call the preparation stage. So here what you're doing is trying to help them increase the commitment to take responsibility. And that's why choices are important. Because if the patient chooses it, it makes it much more probable that they will be more committed to it. Okay? And then you want to help support the planning. So you want both treatment planning, which is what I can do for you, and change planning is what you can do for you. So the change planning is really the client's work. The treatment planning is your work. So we try to put those together, and you try to match the treatment planning with the change planning.
Again, like people that I was more close to in the women's support group, also out of town, and so I had all this time,
right,
and I didn't know.
So even though you have this important reason to kind of not drink, it's really hard to do that when there's nobody around.
It was really hard when there was no one around.
Yeah.
When it came to that hour where I would start,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was it's like I had this whole night and I didn't know I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do.
No, that's difficult. I think, the old crutches come back when you're kind of feeling that way and feeling lonely and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we need to figure out what else we can do. There may be something else we can do to help. I know you have a support group. That's mainly a group of women who are kind of about divorce and separation and that, right? That's what that is. There are other support groups. AA is really quite a good support group. There are Women for Sobriety, which has some groups which are all women, and they kind of offer the same kinds of things, mutual help as AA does. And then they've got they're also sponsors, people who will kind of talk to you and who are available all the time to help. So I think that thinking about another support group might be helpful. The other thing is medications. There are some medications that, acamprosate has been known to help people remain abstinent. So that's a medication. I talked, I think, a little bit before about disulfiram, antabuse, which was a medication that sometimes people take when they are really afraid that they're going to go back. And so it at least delays it. You can't make the decision to drink on the spur of the moment. If you're taking that medication, it takes at least 24 hours or more for it to get out of your system so that you can drink.
Okay.
So if you take the medication on, regularly for a couple of days, then it would be harder for you to kind of drink on the spur of the moment. So you might use that to kind of cover you in times that are going to be really problematic, to make sure to reinforce your kind of desire or will to kind of not drink. You'd get sick if you drank.
Oh,
So it
okay.
wouldn't really be very pleasant.
Huh.
Now, you have to be pretty convinced that you're not going to drink, because it obviously has some side effects. You don't want to get sick, and you don't want to drink on top of that. You could get really sick.
Oh.
It could hurt you. So we can think about that, either of those. How do those sound to you?
The antabuse, you take it all the time, or you take it literally just before?
Well, you can take it, I mean, for the periods of time that you're most concerned. I mean, typically, if someone who's really dependent would take it every day to kind of make sure it's one day at a time. If you're not having any trouble during the week, then you might be able to take it just on the weekend that you're really concerned about, or when you don't have the kids, or when you feel particularly lonely. So it might be something that you could use as a way to kind of support your decision. So it sounds like you're ready to try a little bit of both of those kind of suggestions. My suggestion would be to go to one or two of the groups. I think going to a women's group, I think, would be really helpful for you. Seeing what you could do. You already have kind of support system in the other group, but this might just give you that added support of people who know what you're doing in terms of struggling with the drinking. The other is we have a consulting doc on staff who I'll make an appointment with so that you can see him, and he'll evaluate you for the disulfiram, and if that's a good way to do that. He may have some other suggestions about medications as well. Just talk to him about that, and you can do that. But you've been doing really well, so I really think that you should feel very, very good about yourself. You've made some really good. I talked too much in that, but otherwise it was what you're trying to do is give them some options and have them make some choices. She actually has a lot more to say about that. We could only use a small clip, but she ultimately chooses to do some of the medication and to go to some of the AA self-support groups to help her during that difficult time. So it's a way to try and help people to kind of build commitment and choice. But they have the choice. They need to choose which of the options they're going to follow through on and work with. So pharmacotherapy here offers a possibility for people to kind of help, either to deal with the triggers, to help reduce some of the craving, but it builds in some pieces of the plan and gives the patient some alternatives. The other nice thing is that medications usually have a definitive start date, which oftentimes people can kind of say, okay, that's when I'm going to start my plan. I mean, in the smoking area, we used to say motivate and set a date, because basically if you get people to set a date, that's really helpful to get them to begin implementing their plan. So there is that kind of an option. So really any of the 4 FDA-approved pharmacotherapies can really be introduced as part of the option of a change plan. So with preparation, you really can bring both of those together. You work on commitment, choice, definitive date, selecting things that they can do and add into their change plan. And you can provide the treatment plan part of that, but they need to put it in their change plan. And you provide elements that will help them with some of the barriers that they feel. This was a woman actually who was not drinking regularly. She only drank on the weekends. So her issue was not regular drinking, it was the weekends, and it was drinking particularly when the children weren't there. She was divorced or separated, and the kids were gone. And when the kids were gone, then she'd drink, and drink mightily. So that was part of, we were trying to titrate the treatment around whatever the type of problem was. So let's get into action. If the patient here is implementing the plan, taking steps, doing the things that are important for them, and the treatment plan is supporting that. So you're really trying to implement the strategies, help them revise the plan, help them sustain commitment when there's some difficulties, and then helping them to support their efficacy. So that's what you want to try and do during the action phase. In this next video, you'll see a kind of a there's a compilation, two different scenarios, one earlier and one a little bit later in the action phase. Remember, I think of the action phase as 3 to 6 months. So I'm thinking it's taking a while for these people. And the first scenario, the woman was having a little bit of trouble, and so there was some offering, maybe there needs to be some revision in the treatment plan. You also may recognize the therapist in this piece.
I don't believe taking any pill. I don't even take an aspirin.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to try to come and see you and see, 3 months is a lot, like I said, so I'm very proud of myself. The medication,
Okay. Well, I'm proud of you, too. I want you to know that,
thank
Carmen.
you.
I'm very proud of you. It's a big deal that you came in, particularly when your husband was not supportive and you really felt like this was the next step for you. I'm very proud of you, and you're doing wonderful.
Thank you.
And I will give you the tapes and the literature and my card. And
that would be wonderful. I look forward to give it to him.
yes.
And I can read those books if it's in English, and he can listen to the tape and maybe make some sense to him.
Yes.
That it's very important for me to be here.
How often are you seeing your sponsor?
I don't know, once every couple weeks now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
It's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. But
What about the cravings?
every once in a while it'll hit me, but it's manageable.
Okay.
I can
And the
deal.
Vivitrol's helping?
Yeah, and then, like I said, when I do crave alcohol, it's I can just work through it.
Wow.
So it's fine. It's not a problem at all. So.
What about your family, your girlfriend, your job?
Oh, that's great. Well, work is cool. Work, I actually got a promotion. So that's cool. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He's
More
all
money
like,
too?
yeah. Take a promotion. Let's get more money. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's great. He's all like, oh, you're like a different person, So I'm like, oh, I wonder why.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And my girl, we've been doing good. She's planning this wedding, which I'm a little. Yeah.
Thinking of marriage.
She's thinking of marriage. I'm
Okay.
listening to her thoughts, but she wants a ring or something crazy like that. And so there's, but
You're listening to her thoughts. What are your thoughts?
about marriage?
About the ring, about the marriage?
We're talking. Yeah, she's cool. She's cool. I don't know. It's cool though. It's cool. Yeah. So maybe one day.
Okay.
Soon.
We'll talk about that
Yeah,
our next session. I think there's some things we need to look at there.
Yeah, well.
You remember when we first started, we talked about the pre-contemplative stage
Yeah.
and preparation, all that. So it sounds as if you're there with the marriage plan. You're contemplating.
Yeah, well,
but
more
you're
than I was when we first met.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I can actually see it happening. I just it's scary.
not. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be.
Just as has been your preparation for recovery.
Right. So.
Okay.
Did recognize that therapist as well, I'm sure. She was behind the desk most of the time here. So both of those scenarios kind of show supporting people in their choices and helping them kind of figure out what's going on. And actually maintenance late action is where you also need to kind of support them and deal with other problems. And as you see, actually the same process goes for the marriage stuff as it goes for the recovery stuff. So he'll have to keep working on that part of his ambivalence as he moves through that process. So pharmacotherapy can actually help in the commitment to action. As this individual said, it really helped him kind of deal with some of the cravings. It can support some of the early success. It can decrease some of the negative effects of abstinence that are there, some of the craving urges. And it, in many cases, the naltrexone actually helps decrease some of the positive effects of drinking. So that people on the naltrexone don't get the same kinds of pleasurable experiences from the drinking. So it can help in a number of ways to help these people work their plan. So it can do that, and actually you can bring it in later on if people need to revise their plan, if they're struggling with that. So we have the naltrexone can do, as we said. The acamprosate really has been able to help people maintain abstinence. That's one of its effects. And the disulfiram really helps people to kind of supports their commitment if they're willing to take it. Now, disulfiram got a bad rap early on because people say, well, the disulfiram doesn't work. It all depends on the motivation. Well, that's a duh. Of course, you have to take it in order for it to work. So if they knew they could drink if they didn't take it. Well, that's the whole point. So it isn't, if somebody's not interested in quitting drinking, they shouldn't use disulfiram. But if they are interested and they need some support, then it's a help. So it really, you have to titrate it to what are the needs of the patient, but also what's the patient's, how committed they are to doing this. So again, you do things titrating your strategies and also medications based on what's the issues that are facing that particular patient. So you can, in action, you can provide support and affirmation. That change is possible with this process. It assists change plan and abstinence goals, and you can work on this revision of the plan. So maintenance. Maintenance is really the long haul. It's really sustaining this and making it into a lifestyle. If you listen to the woman who was the second in that looping piece, she had just passed, I think, her 1-year anniversary, had been really kind of getting her life back, getting education, getting her kids back in her life, people who had abandoned her. So it's really the time when you're trying to kind of, once the recovery gets a little more solid, you're trying to kind of build the life back up and do the kind of things that you need to do in order to do that. So the challenge, many of us don't see people a lot in maintenance, and that actually could be a benefit of medication. Some of these medications go on. I think the Vivitrex is really recommended for doing a shot for 12 months. So you can think about that they could actually help you kind of see these patients on a more ongoing basis if you think about that. So people come back to check up and they can't get their medications refilled without coming back. That's how the doctors keep getting us to see them over and over again. So the tasks are really kind of helping support them. If we can kind of keep out there, you keep sending them to AA and having them go to the meetings and get support there. They keep in contact with their sponsors. So all of those kind of things are helping avoid going back to the old and trying to create a new. That's the challenge of maintenance. Critical here again is supporting the self-efficacy. And here you want people to kind of to believe in themselves in terms of the change. And even with medication-assisted change, you want to support that personal efficacy and ability to abstain. And again, this particular scenario kind of emphasizes kind of thinking about both of those. I mean, have you thought about kind of stopping the medication, or you?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I don't think I really need it that much anymore, but I mean, at the same time, I don't want to, digress or, I think I can control it. Is there a way I could try stopping it for a while?
That's a good suggestion, actually. I think maybe we should try that. I mean, let's talk. You check in with the doctor. You could kind of. Try it. Maybe we could meet again in the middle of that time period, so just to check and make sure. But you're really doing this. It's not the medication. You're making the changes and not drinking and not accepting the drink. So, so it may be that the medications helped you, and now you're able to kind of do it on your own.
Well, I feel good.
So again, I think that's the message that you're really trying to get across, is that, and especially in the transition, you've got to be careful, because that transition off the medication is a time when they need particular support. It's later in recovery than we're normally seeing sometimes that they need more help, but that would be a critical time to do that. So the pharmacotherapy options, again, can provide foundations for natural reinforcers of change to take hold, can create growing sense of efficacy, help prevent relapse, support stabilization and resolution of other problems. So that's part of what you're trying to do, is get stability and then kind of make sure that that gets integrated into a lifestyle. Deciding how and when to transition is really critical and should be done clearly in consultation with the patient. So, in maintenance, you can use that. It creates foundation. We just talked about all these things. You'll need to fade it out and replace it with other support systems. Now, relapse is another issue. There's a lot of patients who slip and go back. Sometimes it's a slip, sometimes it goes back all the way, and they need to recycle back through the process of change. So relapse, again, a learning experience. They need to recycle. They need to figure out what went wrong and how to get it better. You always want the next attempt to be better than the last attempt, even if the next attempt isn't successful. Obviously, we all want the next attempt to be successful, but that's what you're really working on. So you really focus on the patient ability, the successes, and the commitment of change. Now, clearly, you need all of the things that we just talked about, especially empathy at this time, develop discrepancy, support their self-efficacy. You know, this is a time where the patient's already doing some blaming, so the program shouldn't be blaming or shaming at this particular point. You know, the program works, you just didn't work the program. I mean, you know, it's really your fault. That's not really very helpful. Let's find out what was the plus parts of it and help them to kind of build on that and build on the successes. So it's like the resilience literature. You've got to try and look for what were the positive things and how to build on those. So pharmacotherapy even here can be helpful. In some ways it can, you know, if someone's on the medication and continues to take it and drinks still, there is a possibility that it would interfere with kind of a full-blown relapse. So maybe it could help even if somebody slips, that they realize that this isn't as pleasurable or whatever. So they can work on that. There are, I mean, acamprosate really helps balance some of the inhibitory and excitatory signals in the brain, so the patients can continue this medication even if they've tried, even if they've gone back to it, and see if they can kind of recover and get back on their feet. And obviously the disulfiram you don't want when they're drinking, but people could get sobriety and kind of use that again, as this woman was doing, to try and support not slipping. So you really can use it even in the recycling and the relapse piece to talk about that. And some people who have relapsed without medications may come back and say, look, I don't think I can do it. You say, well, maybe you can do it. Let's see what other tools we have to help you. So you're always looking to try and see how you can facilitate that person's efficacy and deal with whatever it is their unique issues are to kind of manage that. Now, none of you should go home and say, Dr. DiClemente says every patient should take medication or anything like that. So there are also unwanted pharmacotherapy interactions. Okay, and I'm going to run through them now to just kind of say, you know, there's also a possible potential side effect of medication at each of these stages that could be problematic. I mean, some people in pre-contemplation, if you kind of see it's a magical solution. So I really don't have to get concerned and interested. All I have to do is take this medication. That ain't going to work. But you have to be careful about that we don't sell it as magic so that they don't have to do anything. They don't have to be interested in changing. All they have to do is take a pill. That doesn't do it. Some people kind of, you know, it's a crutch. So, well, I'll just go back and take my medication again. I'm going to go off again. I mean, the AIDS people, we know there's been some folks, you know, kind of said, well, you know, there's a cure now for AIDS. I mean, we have all of these new medications. So actually, risky behavior has increased. So we have to be careful that, you know, these aren't seen as kind of things that, oh yeah, I can quit anytime, all I have to do is take a pill, and undermine the change process. So you have to be careful there with that. In contemplation, you have to be careful that medication doesn't get used as a way to kind of say, oh good, you know, well, if there's always medication I could use, maybe I don't have to stop drinking right now. And you've got to be careful that, you know, well, no, I don't really have to have much of a decisional balance. I can just use the medication. The medication can't take the place of a good decisional balance and a solid decision. So you can't use medication in place of decision making. In preparation, you know, you have to be careful that people go, okay, well, just give me the medication and then I'll go do it. And they short-circuit the rest of the planning that needs to happen to really help build a comprehensive plan. I mean, we have that problem in smoking cessation. We now have nicotine gum over the counter. And people want to go, they go grab the gum and say, I think maybe I should try to quit. And they grab the gum and they use the gum. And they never, inside the big first pack, there's all the information about the behavioral stuff. But the first pack sometimes is even more expensive than the second pack. So they buy the second pack, and they leave the behavioral piece all on the side, and they're chewing the gum. It's kind of like, no, that isn't, the goal is not to get you to chew gum always. It's to get you to quit smoking. So we have to kind of teach people how to incorporate both of those things, the behavioral, psychosocial kind of change, along with the pharmacological change in there. Sometimes in action, medication the dosing schedule gets to be too burdensome. That's certainly what happened with AIDS, with all of the multiple medications that they had to take, made it a tremendous burden, and many people were not very adherent, and that was really bad. So you have to be careful. If they're not adherent, then they kind of go, well, I'm not taking the medication, so I'm going to go back to drinking. Side effects sometimes can undermine commitment. Sometimes people get cocky. They get cocky anyway, as you know. I mean, they've been drinking for 20 years, and after 3 days they go, I got it, I know it, it's solved, I got this knocked, no problem. I'm going, what? 3 days? You're sober 3 days, for God's sake. You've drank for 30 years. But the medication could help get them a little cockier and think that they've got it now because they've got medication on board. So, and you have to be careful that it doesn't undermine efficacy. So we're trying to kind of support efficacy, not undermine it. And in maintenance, you've got to think about the transition piece. There's always the issue, the more they stay on the medication, that they could feel that there's a sense of loss of support. And they could also use that instead of developing the strategies for long-term dealing with cravings and urges that come once you get off the medication. So it's clear that it's not just all roses picture. You have to be careful about negative side effects of medication that are for the psychosocial side effects of medication, as well as the main effects that could be helpful. So if you think about this perspective, then we have these process, we have people trying to move through this process, we have lots of different things to work with them. We have the psychological treatments, the social treatments, the spiritual treatment dimensions, and we have the medication dimensions that we could use. So the idea is not to move all of those out of there, it's to bring another tool together to help us deal with all of those aspects, to do the best job we can to help people successfully complete each of these, the tasks of each of these stages, in order to be able to do this. Because relapse isn't always a problem here. It's a problem that this wasn't done well enough, or this wasn't done well enough, or even this, getting concern and interest, wasn't done well enough. So we need to kind of keep helping people to make it through all of those things. So if we put pharmacotherapy as really an important development, it really needs to be done in conjunction with psychosocial treatment and mutual help, not separate from it. And that's my real fear, and why I'm here doing this, is that ultimately the more the medications get out there, the more people go, oh, well, there's a medication for this. Let me go get this and do like they do with the nicotine gum. Get this, and all I have to do is chew the gum, and I don't have to do any of the other stuff. That's not going to work. You really have to put both of those things, all of those aspects of treatment together. So we have opportunities to motivate patients both using both pharmacotherapy and motivational interviewing. And I believe that if we do it well and integrate medication use and management into the motivational change process, we can actually enhance both the effective use of medication and promote successful change. Now we can ask some questions.